I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite channel. It's on YouTube now.
Resident Evil 4 was one of the best, if not the best, console experiences of the last generation of games. Resident Evil 6, Capcom's latest entry in its survival horror flagship franchise, is easily the most expansive and ambitious offering yet. It's been way too long since I've had such a deep experience in a video game, and Resident Evil 6 delivers that. Capcom heard many fan concerns that they deviated too much from the survival horror elements that are at the core of the series, and focused too much on action when they made Resident Evil 5. Those concerns are addressed well in Resident Evil 6, as horror is alive and thriving. I'll begin this review by talking about the game's strongest points. The story is the main component of the game. There are 3 separate campaigns: Leon and Helena, Chris and Pierre's, and Jake and Sherry. The story will take you to wide-ranging locales, such as China and Eastern Europe. Each campaign is playable cooperatively. It's interesting and rewarding to watch each campaign intersect with the other and what the characters do from a variety of perspectives. The game starts in media res, which is a literary term that means the author expects you to have understood what happened before the game. As you complete the campaign, you unlock Ada Wong's anti-hero campaign, and you unlock Agent Hunt mode, which is on screen now, where you can play as enemy creatures and try and hinder player progress. Be warned though, it's very tough to get any kills as a creature, because you can only play as Agent Hunt against players who have already beaten the game. The online integration is fantastic, as players can drop in and out of games. In addition to campaign mode, there is Mercenaries mode, an arcade-style monster shoot-'em-up where you race against the clock to execute combos and get the highest score that you can. It's engrossingly addicting, and I find myself going for another game long after I've said, alright, this is my last one. There are alternate costumes to be unlocked and several maps to play on, so there's enough content to keep you occupied long after you finish campaign. The cutscenes are the best I've seen in any video game. But here is the first place that this game stumbles. The game tries too hard to be a cinematic experience for everyone watching, and wants to be a good spectator game. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the cutscenes, but they are horribly interspersed. There are periods where cutscenes interject and disrupt the flow and immersion of certain sequences. I'll show this on screen now.
Are you okay?
Let's just find the survivors and get the hell out of here.
Echo to HQ, can you read me? HQ to Echo, report.
Hey! What the hell are you guys doing over there? We need to evacuate, come on!
We detected traces of the C-virus in the gas. Looks like the same gas that hit Tall Oaks. God, Chi has gone to hell. We're trying to get out of...
We're moving in to search for surviving...
Really? Was that one action in between cutscenes really necessary? All I did was walk downstairs. The developers have to keep in mind that we are here to play a game, not watch a movie. The co-op functions are also intrusive. Sure, performing functions like vaulting over distances to solve puzzles is necessary, but there are just too damn many doors that require both people to open. Also breaking immersion is the occasional obstructive camera angle, but this isn't as bad as the cutscene integration. Lastly, QuickTime events can be a chore. Some QuickTime events, such as the combat ones, are pretty well implemented and positively add to the struggle of the game. Some actions, like contextual ones for the environment, are utterly pointless. There's one where you have to execute a sequence of button presses to shoot someone. Why can't my character just have full control? Some of these poor QuickTime events are antiques of an older gaming generation, but not the good type of antique. Gameplay-wise, Resident Evil 6 is the best in the series. You can move while shooting, perform combat dodges, and execute impressive melee functions. While the controls aren't as tight as some other third-person shooters like Gears of War or Mass Effect 3, like for instance the cover system is inconsistent in Resident Evil 6 and melee can be imprecise, it certainly is a step in the right direction. The enemies are the smartest and most fearsome I've ever faced in any Resident Evil game. Having enemies that shoot back at you is an interesting addition and certainly makes for intense firefight sequences. The boss battles are massive and well planned, but they can drag on for long stretches. The level progression and inventory system are better than that of Resident Evil 5, but still are not as good as it was in Resident Evil 4. Upgrades are now player specific rather than weapon specific. I am satisfied with the amount of horror that this game contains. Leon's campaign is easily the scariest. I do wish, however, that one of the main campaigns was playable solo. It's hard to feel isolated and terrified if you have someone with you. This game ultimately suffers by trying to do too much. It's hard to find a balance between survival horror, third-person action, and movie experience. Capcom valiantly tried, and I admire the effort, but in the case of this game, it was probably better to have action and cinema take a backseat to horror. The horror elements it has are well done, but brief, so you are wanting more when all is said and done. It's not bad if a story and horror-mediated game has good action, but it's important not to lose sight of what the series is known for, and that's the horror. In summary, I liked Resident Evil 6, and I will be playing it through multiple times. It is a vast improvement over Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 6 also manages to recapture a lot of the magic that made Resident Evil 4 so successful. But at the end of the day, with this game, less is more, and bigger is not necessarily better. The occasional but very strong annoyances hold it from getting a top tier score. I placed this game in the running for one of my favorite experiences of the year, but I have to give it a 3.0 GPA out of a 4.0 scale.